Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll be communicating quite a bit over the next few months via webinar, so I hope it was a pretty painless log-on process. Once you do it the first time, it's usually smooth sailing from there on in. I'm Margaret Murphy, and I'm the Associate Director of the Healthy Workforce Consortium, and my co-presenters today are Nicole Bunzelmeyer. Nicole, her picture is first on the left, and Michelle Royer, she is the picture on the right. And our goal today is just to give you the lay of the land in terms of the grant under which we're all working, some upcoming timelines, what to expect in terms of what we'll be looking for as a consortium, and to give you a chance to ask some questions. And then we'll have a more in-depth meeting when we all get together in person on the 24th. All right, we'd like to start with introductions. Then we'll go over the key elements of the workforce grant, what we promised, because that's what that's kind of the bottom line. Is the Department of Labor will be looking for us to deliver what we promised. We'll talk about accessibility, dissemination, what you can expect from us in terms of services and resources, and what we'll be looking for in terms of required elements of curricula and course materials. We'll go over some resources that are available, some open source health IT resources, and next steps. So, introductions. We'd love to hear from all of you, but first I just want to give you a quick tour of WebEx. So all of you should see in the main portion of the screen a PowerPoint slide that says agenda on it. And if you go to the right, you'll see several different what we'll call panes. And at the top, there's a participant pane. And in the middle, there's a chat pane. And we'll do a little test to make sure everybody knows how to use this, because we'll be using it a few times during today's session. And then you should also see in the bottom pane something called polling. If you don't see those, go up to the right-hand corner. You'll see a little drop-down arrow, and you should see something that says Manage Panels when you click on the drop-down arrow. Okay, and you can add panes if you're not seeing them. Okay, off we go. Let's see, let's go in reverse alphabetical order. So we'll start with Whatcom. If the curriculum development specialist from Whatcom can just say your name.
I guess that would be me. I'm Vivian Todd Hunter.
Hello, Vivian.
Hi.
And next we have Spokane. Let's see, do we have someone from Spokane? And some of you have your audio muted, which is great. It reduces background noise, but if your college is called, don't forget to click on that little microphone to the right of your name to unmute yourself. So do we have a representative from Spokane? Okay, how about Renton Community College? Okay, Pierce College, a representative from Pierce?
Hi, my name is Emily Wood.
Hey, Emily.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. It's a little echoey, but I can hear you.
Okay, my name is Emily Wood. I'm at Pierce College.
Terrific. Okay, how about Northern Virginia?
Hi, this is Willie speaking.
Hi, Willie. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Clover Park. Anyone from Clover Park? All right, how about Clark College?
This is Bonnie Altus from Clark College. You mentioned an in-person meeting on the 24th.
Yes.
I haven't heard about that yet, and the problem is I teach in the classroom Thursday evenings for Oregon Tech, so that might be a problem for me.
Okay, well, why don't you and I connect after today's session?
Okay, thanks.
Sure. All right, and Bellingham. Vivian, you're doing double duty, right?
Right, I'm also for Bellingham Technical College.
All right, Vivian Todd Hunter. And our own Bellevue College.
That's Nathan Savage.
Hello, Nathan. And
Morning.
and we'd also love to find out, thank you all for attending and introducing yourselves. If anybody joined us, any of the curriculum development specialists who didn't hear your college called, I might have called it before you joined.
I'm Scott Dawson. I'm from Spokane Community College.
Oh, terrific. Hi, Scott.
Hi there.
Okay, well, I'd love to find out a little bit more about the group. So in the bottom right hand of your screen, the bottom right pane, you should see a poll asking what your primary role was prior to this position. If you could select the best answer. Okay, I'm going to close the polls, and there are the results. So it looks like about half of you have a curriculum development instructional design background. We have an administrator, and we have a couple of IT faculty, and we have a couple of people who selected other. Those of you who selected other, I'm dying to know what your backgrounds are. If you could go to the chat pane, and in the box there, just type your name and what your role was prior to this project. I'm wondering if people are not seeing the chat pane. Well, let's just do it by audio. Those of you who selected other, just unmute your line and tell us what your role was prior to this one.
Hi, I had selected other. I'm Emily at Pierce College.
Yeah.
So I guess I do have some instructional design background, but formally I'm a faculty librarian at Pierce College, and also a quality matters reviewer, so I have some expertise in
Oh, interesting. Okay, great. That's a great background for health IT. Anybody else? Okay, well, we will move along. All right, well, this next month might feel a little bit like this. We'll be sending your way templates, timelines, health IT resources, but I think that feeling will quickly pass once you dive in. Just a little note about Grant Life. Some of you no doubt have experience with grants, but they are a lot like a startup. We put in the proposal, and then we get the grant, and what happens is we need to achieve liftoff while we're still figuring out what to do and how to do it. So we've worked our best to anticipate what we'll need and what we'll need from you, but we'll ask for your patience and flexibility. We may realize a little bit down the line that we need something a little bit different, or we need something in addition to what we've asked for. And for example, one of the things we have committed to do is make all of our materials 508 compliant. We have tried our best to educate ourselves about that, but we're not experts. So we're putting some initial requirements in place for 508 compliance, which is accessibility, but we may discover down the line that there are some additional needs. Okay, just a quick overview of the grant itself. We received funding. We received $11.8 million from the Department of Labor, and it was part of a Trade Adjustment and Assistance Program grant, which basically the spirit of this grant was to provide training that would lead to employment for those whose jobs had been outsourced. So that was the impetus for this funding. They added other elements to it. So in the grant at SGA, which is like an RFP, they, in addition to charging people with training unemployed workers in high demand fields, they also looked for stackable credentials, either within an institution or across institutions. They had a heavy emphasis on evidence-based design. I see someone joining us. Oh, Cherry Landis, welcome. I see someone joining us by webcam. Evidence-based design was a real thrust of the grant. They want practices that are proven to work. And this covers all of our activities, including curriculum design. They're looking for innovation, prior learning assessment. Research has shown that if students, particularly adult students, if they can get prior learning assessment credit, they tend to be more likely to complete programs, more likely to persist. And they're very interested in practices that retain students and promote completion. They want basically their money to be used in an effective way. So, as I mentioned, key areas: training that leads to jobs. In our grant, we chose to focus on health informatics. That's the domain area that we focused on. We also pointed to the problem in health IT right now is there is a shortage of workers, an acute shortage, which is fantastic in terms of training people in high demand areas. However, because it's such a new area, there's also a shortage of training programs. So we are tasked with creating curricula that will disseminate nationally so that other institutions can pick this up and train people in their regions. Another area that we saw lacking in terms of health IT training infrastructure is that we have IT faculty with IT expertise without health IT expertise. We have allied health programs, all of which need to incorporate health IT into them. However, the faculty don't have that expertise. So we'll also be offering faculty training in health IT to both IT and allied health and nursing faculty. One other mention, keep in mind as you're developing curricula that what we produce will be disseminated on a national portal. So it's fairly high visibility. Additional key areas of focus. In addition to focusing on those whose jobs have been outsourced, this grant also asked us to focus on military veterans and their spouses. There are thousands of military veterans returning from abroad and looking for work. The unemployment rate, particularly among young veterans, is up around 29%. So it's a pretty pressing problem in the country. So we chose to focus heavily on veterans. Each college has pledged to certain outcomes, a certain number of students enrolled in programs, a certain number of students graduating and moving into employment. We also promised services for the target groups, veterans, TAA eligible individuals. Some of the things we're offering for veterans include apprenticeships, and that will be launched in the veterans community, and a couple of the possible locations will be the VA. We worked with them on a previous grant, so we have some excellent connections there. And then HIMSS. HIMSS is the largest professional association in health IT. It's a huge organization. They typically have over 30,000 participants at their annual conference. We're partnering with them to create connections between veterans and health IT jobs. It's called HIMSS Heroes Welcome. We also funded positions at each institution for an academic coach. This was based on, I came across some research done by a guy at Stanford who worked with an organization called Inside Track. Inside Track has this model where they have counselors who work one-on-one with students before they start an academic program. They set goals, they identify potential barriers and ways to address them. And this study followed something like 7,000 students, and they demonstrated significant gains in student retention and completion. So we funded a position, a person to check in with students every week, see how they're doing, and that's particularly crucial during the first quarter. And veterans have some unique challenges and needs also, coming from a military environment to a relatively unstructured academic environment. All right, so now we get to it in terms of curriculum. We promised evidence-based training methods, and on the 24th, we'll take a much deeper dive into that. But essentially, we'll be looking for instructional activities that are proven to increase learning outcomes, instructional strategies that are aligned with how humans process and retain information, built-in feedback loops to students. And we're also, throughout every activity in the grant, I neglected to mention one other key theme in these TAA grants is continuous improvement. So we'll be taking a first pass at curricula and then evaluating how it worked and then making revisions. We also promised to try our best to have common navigational structures across institutions, and that goes along with the stackable credentials. This will be a unique challenge when we're dealing with different e-learning platforms, but we don't have to worry about that quite yet. That's down the road. And that does not apply to the infused programs. It just applies to the non-infusion programs. Okay, we've also promised universal design of instruction, accessibility. That's where 508 compliance comes in. And we'll be happy to guide the way on that and let you know what needs to be done. We've also pledged that all of the materials we create, even if they are delivered at your institution in a classroom-based environment, we'll need to optimize them and adapt them for e-learning delivery in our disseminated programs. This is an exciting element of the grant. Any of you who have waded into health IT waters, one common problem is that vendors are so busy right now and making so much money that giving students academic access to their products is not exactly a high priority. So the products that are out there are typically really expensive. Washington State is fortunate that the recently signed an agreement with an organization called Near Perfect. We have a statewide license, so it reduces the fees, the per student fees, significantly. But it's a problem nationally. It's a barrier for providing health IT education to students that'll make them work ready. So we've hired a company who will be working with multiple vendors to create an academic EHR access system. It'll all be cloud-based. So the outlook is that we'll give students the opportunity to play around in different vendor products so that when they hit the workplace, they'll be well prepared. Okay, in terms of just a quick overview of the different curriculum projects, we're asking every institution to come up with an IT Common Core to identify a Common Core. I'm not going to go into detail on that because curriculum development specialists, unless you're doing double duty as the IT Common Core rep, this by and large doesn't apply to you. Health IT Common Core is an aspect that all of the colleges are committed to including in their programs. Some colleges, actually most, are infusing health IT into nursing and or allied health programs, and then some but not all are creating what we're calling X Plus Health IT certificates and programs. That would be, for example, database administration in the healthcare setting, security in a healthcare setting. So what you're looking at as deliverables: first, curricula; next, course materials, and both of these will be using templates and will have requirements, and this is for several reasons. Templates will build in some 508 compliance into the templates. Also, we just finished up another health IT grant, and one of the elements of it involved disseminating many different programs on a common site. Not having templates from the get-go created a nightmare at the back end trying to make everything consistent so that when visitors look at the site and are perusing materials, they don't have to go from apples to oranges. It's all consistent and clear. So that's the rationale for the templates. We'll also be looking for instructor guides and syllabi templates. One other element is a comprehensive PLA challenge exam for non-infusion program courses. So some of you may be familiar with prior learning assessment, others may not be. How prior learning assessment happens, there are a couple of common routes. One is that students put together a portfolio that demonstrates skills and knowledge in the area of whatever course they're trying to get credit for. That is cumbersome for a couple reasons. First of all, the students usually need to take a course in how to put together the portfolio. So they pay for that. It takes time. And then at the back end, they have to find somebody who's willing to review it and crosswalk it with the course materials that they're trying to challenge out of. And there's often not funding at colleges to do this, so you can imagine that people aren't chomping at the bit like, oh yes, I'll review that portfolio for no extra pay and squeeze it into my busy schedule. So the thinking is, if while we're developing the curriculum, if we could create PLA challenge exams at that point, then we'll have them. So when students come to us and say, you know, I only need this course and that course because I already know this, they can take a challenge exam, test out, get credit. Okay, As I mentioned, creation of an online course site, unless, at your institutions, you'll need to check with your PM about who actually builds the online course site. That may be done differently at different institutions. But whoever does it will need to be mindful of the consortium navigational structure. We'll talk more on the 24th. Bellevue College right now has an NSF grant, and we're working with HIMSS, that large Health IT professional association, to develop an entry-level certification in Health IT. The curriculum for this certification is just about finished. It'll be ready in the spring. And we're looking at that as the common Health IT core thread that runs through all of the non-infusion programs at the colleges. At this point, do you have questions? I feel somewhat apologetic just jabbering at you on and on. So if you have questions, either unmute your line or type it into the chat box.
Hey, Margaret, this is Vivian.
Hi, Vivian.
Hi. You said the KHIMSS is going to be that's what you're going to use the basis for the Common Health IT courses?
Yes, for the Common Health IT core. So,
core, okay.
And the idea, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so if we're building that, if that's what we're working on, then we kind of want to wait or get a hold of you regarding the KHIMSS information?
We will send out the KHIMSS information, but I think we're going to schedule another webinar to just talk about this whole structure, the KHIMSS core, because I think it's kind of confusing to people.
Okay.
So we'll schedule another meeting just to talk about that.
All right, great. Thank you.
Sure. Other questions?
You had mentioned that the curriculum is it all going to be hosted off of one and we're all going to use the same curriculum through this? Or is each college going to have different pieces and parts that they offer through their own LMS?
Are you speaking of KHIMSS or the programs?
The programs in general. So when we come up with the curriculum we've got the mobile side of the project. So we come up with the mobile classes. We'll store those it'll be based off of a template that we come up with as far as making sure that all of this looks and feels somewhat the same, but then are we going to house it all in one LMS system so we can all use it, or is this individual to the colleges?
Individual to the colleges. You'll be implementing on your own systems.
Okay.
Yeah, otherwise I think
that would
be you're thinking, wow, that would be a nightmare. Right? Other questions? Okay, so the action steps that we're seeing in the near future is if you haven't read the grant proposal, I would say that would be stop one, and if you haven't received that yet from your PM, I'd be happy to just send that out to everybody. And also confirm your curriculum development projects with your PM so that you are crystal clear on exactly what you're doing and who the players are. We created a timeline. If you haven't received that, ask your PM for it. And then I would recommend checking with all the stakeholders to identify any potential obstacles with the timeline. It's a pretty ambitious timeline. We have to get started pretty quickly because we have goals to meet. We need to launch programs pretty early on to meet the outcomes projections in terms of students trained. So all these different pieces need to hang together. Obviously, scheduling meetings with your subject matter experts and faculty. and checking with your project manager to see what funds are available for subject matter experts. And becoming familiar with health IT resources. And actually, I have another question that I would love to ask you all. So I am going to do another poll. Just take me 1 second here to pull it up. Okay, you should see a poll any minute now asking about your health IT knowledge. Okay, we have no knowledge. And frankly, because health IT is relatively new, you know, we probably will have a fair number of people with limited knowledge of health IT. Fortunately, there are lots of resources out there. Okay, so let's see, take a look at this. Sorry, there's a bit of a delay here. Okay, so we have a couple of IT faculty who are new to health IT, a couple people with moderate knowledge, a few people with significant knowledge of health IT, and a couple with none to some. And that's what we expected. It's all over the map. We at the Bellevue team will be happy to help. We've been waiting around in health IT for the last 2.5, 3 years because of a previous grant. And we're there to help. So if you're looking, we'll be scheduling meetings with all of you to get a better sense of how we can help. And we have several of us who can assist. Okay, this is a typical timeline. Each one is slightly different in terms of what the specific program is, but the dates, the deliverable dates are similar across programs, and you'll just need to get a copy of that from your project manager. Okay, so just a summary of the key activities for winter. IT Common Core, which most of you do not need to concern yourselves with. Allied health and nursing, health IT infusion curricula, and course materials. The reason for this is that many of your institutions are planning to implement this infused curricula in spring quarter. Some are even doing it winter quarter. One thing I want to mention, in the spirit of continuous improvement, first time around, you can take your best shot at the infusion materials, and you'll have a chance to do a review after the first time it's launched. Particularly, you know, if faculty are busy and they say, wow, I can only incorporate 8 hours of health IT this time around, but next time, you know, with more planning, we can incorporate more. That could be one route to go. Also, Nicole Bunzelmeyer, who is our instructional design specialist, has just put together kind of a foundational program in health IT that we'll be rolling out to you all based on some existing resources. So you can pick and choose from that, and we'll be doing a webinar on that as well. Okay, and then for those of you who are also doing non-infusion programs, your first step, winter quarter, will be the creation of the curricula, not the course materials. I mean, you can certainly work ahead and create course materials, but you're on the hook for the curricula in winter quarter for those programs. Okay, spring. Then you start working on the non-infusion program course materials. Working with your PM on institutional curriculum approval, that is more in their bailiwick, but you'll undoubtedly have a piece because they'll ask you to provide the content that goes into the curriculum approval process. Did someone have a question or comment? Okay, development of a comprehensive PLA challenge exam for certificate programs. So we'll talk in more detail about that, but that will be part of the deliverable. Summer, we'll be developing technology-based e-learning activities, and we will have an educational technologist here on our staff who can assist with that and work with you to create some of those things. You'll also be reviewing and revising that first round of infusion course materials, and likely we'll be asking you all to do some testing of EMR STAR and possibly the development of some lab activities for that academic access package. And fall, we'll be launching the new Health IT certificate programs. Any questions at this point? Okay, I'd love to hear from you using the chat window. If you could let us know what interests you most about this project. So if you type in you should see the chat pane in the middle at the right-hand side.
Hey, Margaret?
Yes.
This is Tony Mariani from NOVA.
Hi, Tony.
I did utilize the chat window, but you didn't address my question, so I wanted to pop in quick before we get too far off the topic.
I'm not seeing it. Huh.
Oh, well, it came from Willie's computer. We're huddled up in here together, but that's fine.
Oh, okay.
We had discussed, or I believe it was Linda Miller, if I'm not mistaken, had talked about, because we were talking about how likely it will be to infuse into the spring semester because things are already kind of in place here. But she had discussed possibly developing, or she had already developed, like an 8-hour workshop that might be able to incorporate that. Is that something we're still considering, or?
Yes.
Okay.
So
we'd be very interested in doing that.
Okay, and I think that's a great way to get things started quickly and then do something a little more robust a little bit later.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I want to know.
And let's see, Emily. Oh, okay, what you're excited about. So Emily is excited about PLA and that all the resources will be open resources, open education resources. Yeah, that's exciting to us too. And our PLA specialist, Andy Brucia, came to me with this idea. He said, well, you know, we're creating curriculum. Can't we just create a challenge exam at the same time? And I thought, wow, that's brilliant. It should become a community college practice, and those will be designed to be auto-scored, so that we want to keep it as labor unintensive as possible. Vivian's excited. Oh, Vivian, if you could hit everyone on your retype and hit everyone on your chat window. But she's excited to learn more about health IT and contributing the knowledge she already has. Jerry, adding a health IT component to allied health curriculum gives students another pathway. Yeah, definitely. And and Jerry also mentions it makes them much more marketable. Everyone, when you type your chats, if you could make sure that the box above the chat window there's a drop-down arrow, make sure you've selected everyone. Anybody else? What's exciting about the program through the chat window? No other comments? Or if you're having trouble with the chat window, anybody like to say anything verbally? And Emily, helping veterans and their families. Yeah, that's a big need. Okay, Greg. Well, Greg, nice segue. My next question was going to be, what do you see as your biggest challenge? Greg says, biggest question and concern is, how can we infuse IT into existing curricula while minimizing the students' course burden? And that's a challenge in allied health as well. Yeah, it kind of takes looking at the whole curricula and seeing, is there anything that's outdated that we don't need anymore that we can replace with health IT? And Bonnie, thank you. Not sure yet, still learning. Yes. One more question for all of you. What was your first day on this project? I know some of you have only been on the project for about a minute. If you could let me know that. January 7th. And Emily, January 7th also. Okay. Well, we will, okay, Bonnie, part-time in December. Yes, but just dipping a toe into the water. Oh, Jerry, you're not even official yet. Hopefully Monday. Okay, and Greg, December 1st. Yes, and our own Nathan, very newly on the project as well. So we are going to offer regular webinars, and we'll try to make them more interactive. They won't be as one person talking at you as this one is. We just needed to cover a lot of ground in this initial meeting, but you can look to many sessions to answer whatever questions you have and make everything as clear as possible. So the content dissemination. The program materials will be developed as open educational resources, and as I mentioned, they'll all need to be 508 compliant. And I'm going to pass the baton to my colleague Nicole, who is going to tell you a little bit more about this. So,
great. Thank you, Margaret. And Margaret's done a really nice job of touching on the topics that I'm going to just dive a little deeper on, and that is open educational resources, the Creative Commons licensing, and Section 508 compliance. So as Margaret mentioned, and as you all know, a core requirement of this grant is the commitment to the national dissemination of open source curricula. So basically what that means is all the materials that we create under this grant have to be released under an open license and made accessible to all for free use. And so to this end, we will use Enter, and as Margaret mentioned, that is the national portal, which is allows for open source course management, and it's a site that's created by the Department of Energy. And we'll be handling pretty much that side of it, but just to let you know, that's where all of our curriculum materials will be housed going forward once they're created. And want to advance slide. There we go. And in an effort to designate our materials as free and open source for all uses, we will use this particular copyright license that you see on the screen here. This was established by the internationally recognized nonprofit group called Creative Commons, and this particular license is called CC BY, Creative Commons BY, and it's the most open of all licenses that Creative Commons has. And it basically states that all of our materials are free for use and repurposed by anybody. And so the templates that we'll be creating as kind of guidelines to help kind of aggregate all the information that we'll need to put up on Enter, we'll also have these licenses and the appropriate verbiage to go along with it. And jumping off then to Section 508 compliance. Since we're committed to disseminating all of our materials online in an open fashion, we must also comply with Section 508. This is a kind of a federal law / guideline. And many of you are probably already familiar with 508 compliance, but it basically states that any electronic or information technology needs to be accessible to people with disabilities. And this particular list here of these 6 categories describes the impact of 508 in an online world. And 2 of them particularly relate to the work that we're doing, which is the web-based intranet and internet information and applications, as well as video and multimedia products. And so as a part of 508, these are some of the touch points that we will see a need to be able to make sure our materials are 508 compliant. As I mentioned, the Enter site will fall under Bellevue's purview, but any Word documents, PDFs, PowerPoints, graphics, videos, audio files, websites, and additionally anything that gets created, let's say in Captivate or Storyline or some other e-learning development tool, will also need to be accessible. And so I hate to scare you in all of this and make it sound like it's very tedious and onerous, but what we've found in our previous grant is if we pay attention to these things right up front, it actually becomes very easy to manage. Trying to do 508 compliance after the fact, or making sure that we've secured all of our materials as being an open and free for dissemination gets really tricky after they've been created. So that's why we wanted to bring it to your attention right up front. And we'll go in much more detail on the 24th. And when you walk out on the 24th, please know that you'll have some tools and some guidelines on how to move forward with all of this. And the final thing that I'll mention here is the Health IT instructional resources. Margaret had mentioned that the grant prior to this, we worked with the Office of the National Coordinator for Health IT, which had a very robust open source curriculum that covered the wide landscape of health IT, everything from, you name it, the history of health IT into very detailed information systems on installing and configuring health ITs. And there are additional resources on Enter, and we spoke briefly about the CA HIMSS curriculum, and also in the particular domains, such as, let's say, nursing or IT or analytics. Those professional societies often put forth a variety of materials, particularly open source, that we might be able to leverage for this project. And we're hoping that as we move forward, we can all start to work together and share where we found materials that we're using, and create sort of a general clearinghouse of resources. So with that, are there any particular questions about open education resources, Creative Commons 508 that we can answer right now? Or also, if you want to stockpile for the 24th, we can do that as well.
Nicole, this is Vivian. What do you mean by stockpile for the 24th?
As far as any questions that you might have, if you need to think about it a little bit more and come to the 24th with more questions.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Sure. Sure. And
excuse me. Hi, this is Susan from Clover Park. I was wondering if there's I might have missed this coming in, but is there a good place to start? Is there a couple of links or a good site to send us to?
Sorry. Yes, we will be sending you some links as a follow-up to this session. It's a great question.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Great. With that, Margaret, I can hand it back to you if you'd like.
Well, thank you, Nicole.
Let me do that. Margaret, would you mind reminding me again?
Sure. So select my name, and then at the bottom of that first pane, you should see Make Presenter as an option. Ah, yeah.
There we go.
There we go. Thanks, Nicole. Nicole has become our resident expert in the Creative Commons licenses and 508 compliance. As Nicole mentioned, the Office of the National Coordinator for Health IT funded the development of about 1,000 hours worth of health IT curricula. And these were created by the heavy hitters you see on the slide here. And what it consists of mostly is voice-over PowerPoint lectures that are offered in multiple formats. There are audio transcripts, MP3 files, Flash videos. They're not the most exciting instructional delivery method. However, once I shifted my thinking and thought, well, you know what, they're basically like textbooks and they're all open source. Then I thought, oh, this is just a wonderful resource, because what you can do is use this as the foundation and then create more engaging pieces, to enliven your courses. And that's what we did on our last grant, and we'll be sending you links to a couple of the things that we did on our previous grant, just to see how to use the ONC materials and what you can add to them. And this is the site that we'll be taking you to, our ONC Plus programs. You'll see something that looks like that. That will have a list of all of the different courses that we put together. These were largely short courses, like 40 hours, with the exception of one Health IT Foundations for IT Professionals, which was more like, Vivian, what was that, 165 hours or something like that? But we'll send you links. Okay, as I mentioned, in terms of processes and procedures, there'll be required elements in both the curricula and courseware. So a required element in curricula might be something like, have you vetted this curricula with an industry advisory board? It doesn't have to be an official advisory board, but somebody from industry, have they looked at it and said, yes, this is on target? And we'll be giving you more details about other requirements in both curricula and courseware. You'll be receiving from us templates that have some 508 features built in, and we'll be defining the common navigational structure a little bit down the line. We don't have to worry about that yet. So in terms of support from us, we can identify resources, we can create activities and games, assist with development of scenarios. There's one other individual, it'll be myself, Nicole Bunzelmeyer, and one other individual who is not here right now, Brooke McKenzie. She'll be on site with us on February 11th. She's actually in Thailand at the moment, and it's the middle of the night. Otherwise, she'd be with us here today on this webinar. But so we'll have the three of us available to assist, and also the educational technologist to help create activities and games. And we also can provide editing services on multimedia pieces. So for example, if you want to, as part of your infusion programs, interview someone who works in hemodialysis who is very familiar with how health IT intersects with hemodialysis, you can simply have them record on a webcam, send the piece to us, and we can have a video editor clean it up, add some images, make it more interesting. So we have some funding to do that. So again, we already went over this slide, but here are the logical next steps. And you'll be hearing from us with a lot of invitations to shorter webinars, shorter than this one, on a variety of topics. What questions and comments do you have at this point? And what do you see as your biggest challenges? If you could type in the chat window. We're really excited about this project. I mean, first of all, it's very worthwhile work to do. You know, creating training programs in a field that is hiring like crazy. So to create new jobs for people whose jobs have been outsourced, for veterans and their families, very worthwhile work to do. But just from a curriculum development and instructional design perspective, to have a whole group of people that can exchange ideas and to have staff to develop games and activities and scenarios, it's very exciting from an instructional design point of view. Okay. Bonnie, feeling a little overwhelmed. Can the curricula development that needs to be done completed during winter quarter, can it be done in a part-time position? I believe it's doable, Bonnie, but it sounds like you and I need to talk about a few things after the session, so I'll be sure and drop you an email if we can find a time to chat. And Vivian, biggest challenge finding is helping people in the different curricula areas understand how we can work together. Ah, yes. That initial working with SMEs, working with faculties, and Emily, even the scheduling. Yeah, so I think the sooner we can all move forward, the better, before the quarter dissipates. I think these first 2 months are going to be the most challenging. I think after that, things will settle down a little bit, and hopefully life will get a bit easier, and you'll have a chance to really focus more on what can I do to make this the best curriculum ever? What cool, interesting, engaging activities can I add to this program? It'll be nice when we disseminate just some cutting-edge materials that can be shared across the country. Any other comments? We're really looking forward to meeting you all on the 24th and to working with you over the next few months. We hope it will be a very collaborative experience, because we'd love to hear from you different things you've done and ideas to share with the group that we can all benefit from. If there are no other questions or comments, we will sign off. Just one more slide, though. Prior to the 124 meeting, we'll be asking each of you to share a little bit about your background and a little bit about the curriculum projects that you're responsible for at your institution. And we'll also be asking you to scan the materials at the following site. I'll send that to you in an email as well, along with some other links. Okay, question from Vivian. Will any part of our work resemble what we see on the Enter site? And that, you know, it could. You may be doing additional things too, and it kind of depends on your subject matter area, Vivian. And I emailed the PowerPoint out to all of you this morning.
Thank you.
So you should have that.
That helps.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Well, thanks so much for tuning in. I know, you know, sometimes it's a little challenging with a webinar when you just hear someone's voice yammering on, but our future webinars will be more collaborative. All right, well, thanks again, and we will see you on the 24th, and we'll be in touch in the interim.
Thank you.
Thanks
for doing this.
Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye.